Welcome to the Doctor's Life podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Diane. Think of the podcast as a mobile doctor's lounge where we take some time out and explore topics that doctors are interested in related to what it means to be a doctor in today's world and creating a rich, satisfying, and meaningful life, as well as making the healthcare system better for doctors and patients. So, if you are a doctor, you'll feel right at home, and if you aren't a doctor, you'll get a better understanding of doctors and what we think about and talk about. I know you will enjoy the conversation. Let's jump in. Well, hey everybody, welcome to the Doctor's Life podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Diane Ansari Wynn. And as usual, we have another great episode for you. Today, we are going to be talking about social media. Ta-da! So we're going to be talking about what social media is and dispel some myths, because I know you guys out there as physicians have a lot of trepidation around social media. So we're going to find out what it's all about and how we can use it safely as physicians for an extension of what we do. So today we have Sue Koch. She's, as usual, I have so many wonderful friends, and Sue is a great friend of mine. She's a social media consultant, and how she got into it is she grew her own consulting business using LinkedIn and Twitter. And then she shifted her business model to social media catalysts for others. She is a sought-out leader in her industry. She's been hired to speak by many Fortune 500 companies, such as Accenture and Oracle. And she guides companies of all sizes through the complexities of social media marketing and develops the strategies they need to survive and thrive in an intensely competitive business environment. Sue is an amazing human being, as well as being very competent and on the forefront of her industry. Thank you so much, Sue, for coming to the Doctor's Life podcast. I'm so excited about this episode.
Thank you, Diane. It's an honor to be here and to join you in this conversation.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So let's hear a little bit more about you and how you got into social media. You've been in this business, this industry for a while, in an industry where a lot of people are just hanging up their shingle and saying they're quote unquote social media expert. You are the real deal. So
well, thank you. Yeah, I've
You're
been
welcome.
doing this now for 10 years. And what's interesting is sort of the reason I ended up in this field is because of the timing of when I decided to start my business. So back in 2009, I quit my air quote successful senior vice president position at a small tech company because I wanted to go do my own thing. And as you may recall, 2009 was probably not the best time to go do something like that.
Yes.
Because I thought, I was financially ready to make the jump and I had enough set for my plan. And a lot of things happened during that time in the economy as well as personally. And I essentially ended up with zero left of my, bootstrap bank account to start my business. But I was determined not to go back. And so what I started to do to grow my consulting clients was use Twitter and LinkedIn to talk about what I was doing, giving tips and, really educating people and just building my network online that way. And then people started to ask me, hey, I don't want what you do. I want you to teach me to do what you did. And a big light bulb went off. And the first time I met with a client, her and a business partner were starting their own marketing agency. And at that time, too, there were a lot of resistant entrepreneurs because a lot of people were getting laid off and just trying to freelance and do things that could get them by. And so it was really a great timing of meeting those, what I was doing and my struggle that I got past and what I learned through it, and helping other people do that very same thing because they were on a very limited budget and couldn't do a lot of advertising or even joining networking groups that cost money and driving all over creation. So it worked out. My original business plan took a fork and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, we are too. And I love how when you hear stories of entrepreneurs, sometimes you start off in one direction and then you find that the demand actually takes you in another direction. So, you need to be flexible in terms of what you're doing. And I think that actually applies not only to physician entrepreneurs, but to physicians that are in practice where, I think, and we can talk about this too, it seems like to be able to get into a larger audience, it's almost imperative that you end up interacting on social media to some degree. When Sue and I were preparing the podcast, what I envisioned is that, say, Sue, you're sitting on an airplane and you sit next to a physician who doesn't know much about social media, and they want to kind of pick your brain about starting from the very beginning. I think this will really be helpful for physician entrepreneurs, but also for docs that are like that doc that just sits next to you on the plane and just sort of asks you questions. So that's how we're going to talk about the social media for the podcast. So we're going to start really basic and ask you, what the heck is social media? There's so many platforms, and then my kids are on something different than, I would be on, they're on Snapchat, and oh Lord, they don't want me on there. So
no. Keep mom out of that playing ground.
Yes. So there's just so many ways to communicate these days. So, what is social media?
Yeah. And that's really, I love, really taking it back to the foundation because it's become so much, right? So now people see it as a broadcasting platform, a medium for entertainment and trying to become a celebrity, a political platform, all kinds of things. And so when you take it back to its roots, social media really kind of has lost the social component in a lot of ways, and a lot of the directions of the trends. And when I say trends, I don't mean technology tools like a lot of people believe. When I say trends, I really mean more the behaviors of the people using it and what they're going to consume, how and why. And the change in that, because I think people got fed up with the loss of social and social media, is really demanding that people take it back to its core, which is building relationships. Right. And so the great thing about social media for a business or an entrepreneur or a personal brand, whatever, is that social aspect can then be heard and experienced by others surrounding the network of people they're already communicating with. So if you and I had a conversation on Facebook about your coaching program, some of my friends who are physicians might be like, who is this Diane woman? And perhaps I should listen to her podcast, and they can join in that conversation with us. And so that's, I think, really going back to the core of it, what social media is really about.
That's a really different perspective, I think, than what a lot of people have about social media now when they hear about somebody that goes on Instagram and is able to make a lot of money, or some folks in the political arena who tweet their opinions and their policy as they're going through things. It's, everybody from the president to, the president of the United States to your next door neighbor is on social media to some degree. And So I love that you're talking about building relationships, because the practice of medicine is all about relationships.
Exactly.
Build relationships with your patients and with the teams that you work with, in the institutions that you're working in, if you have an employer, with your employer. So, I tend to think of physicians as being people who like to get to know each other, to see each other, to do that handshake in person. I think we love to meet people in person. So I think for some, in that way, social media is a little bit daunting because it doesn't feel like up close and personal.
Yeah. And I always, in working with clients, tell them to, really, and depending on what they do for a living and what their goal and intention is out of it. But ideally, that relationship you create online can then be furthered in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right about that. If social media is all about relationships, then the question would be, if I'm this person in the airline seat next to you, why is social media important to me as a physician?
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons, and it also depends on, what your goals are as a physician, if you're trying to grow a business. But there's, something we talked about as we prepared for this was personal brand, right? And so whether you work for a larger office or you are a solo, whatever that is, whether you think it or not, you have a personal brand. And what's really important these days is that you're out there on social media, not only so that you can build relationships with other professionals in your field, learn, share with one another, but also to understand what your patients might be talking about. And the world of social media encompasses now what you might experience seeing on something like a Healthgrades or a Yelp or a Google. People might take to Twitter or Facebook to talk about their experience with you as a physician. And that could be good and that could be bad. And if there is any negativity out there, you really want to be there to meet that. Because what can often happen is you can shift that experience from a negative review or commentary, and when it's dealt with grace and elegance and efficacy, you could actually shift that person back to a patient or a happy person, and also have others that see that response and can understand the dynamic of the situation that might have happened, thereby not perhaps scaring them off from becoming a patient of yours if they were investigating you online.
Right, right. So going back to a little bit that you're saying that physicians have a personal brand. We have a personal brand, whether we want to or not. That sounds a little scary. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah,
it can be.
It can be. So there's a quote by a very well-known person, love him or hate him. It was well stated, but Jeff Bezos says, personal brand is how you make someone feel after you've left the room. Right? So what any patient is thinking about you and the experience they had with you as they walk out of that room and they pay their bills or they get their meds and they leave the office, whatever that is, that impact and that memory of your experience together is your personal brand, right? So then if they take to the internet for any reason to discuss that scenario, you want to be there to meet it. So that's one reason to be on social media, even if you're not someone who's going to be posting case studies and sharing educational marketing and trying to network, at least being out there so that you can, I don't necessarily like to say control your personal brand, but at least guide it back to help people understand who you truly are, right? So thinking about, turn that statement of Jeff Bezos around. How do you want people to feel when they've left an appointment with you? And then as you go on to social media, addressing conversations, making sure that that same type of conversation and feeling and relationship is being demonstrated. And that's how you can then guide your personal brand back to truth if someone comes out there to say something that may not appear so great.
That's really interesting. So you can have sort of conversations with patients, basically. They may not be direct conversations, or maybe they will be, but you're getting at the gist of what your patients might be saying. I've also seen where docs will post information, whether it's for patients or whether it's basically to be in conversation with other physicians. They'll post studies, whether it's their own study or someone else's, and then comment on it. And I've seen conversations between colleagues go on that way, whether it be entrepreneurial colleagues or academic colleagues or colleagues in practice.
Yeah.
So that's like another cool way I've seen where you can
That's a very strong use as well when you're thinking of it as an educational, a study, opinion sharing, really great way. Like you said, it might be a publication that a physician has written themselves that, has multi-goals. Like 1 is to educate people, 2 is maybe to inspire conversation. And then 3, certainly maybe the first priority one is that they're establishing themselves as a thought leader and an expert in that arena. But the great thing about that is sharing content like that accomplishes all of those goals, but then can also help build that network and the relationship of people, like you said, whether it's other physicians, academics, to continue to learn more and continue that conversation. So it's a great opportunity to further studies and ideas and research that never existed before because you didn't have the opportunity to have that conversation with someone who might be in Chicago or New York or Spain, and you can do that very easily now.
Yeah, I've noticed that too from my interactions on social media where someone might have found me or they've seen that I posted about the podcast or just, I do inspirational messages and that kind of thing too. And it's cool because you can virtually meet other physicians that have your same interests. For example, I'm interested, as you guys know, in physician health and wellness and peer coaching and teaching physicians how to coach. And some people have found me on social media. They've also, had conversation, or even if it's just to something that I posted, it does start to form like a relationship. And almost like any relationship where it starts slowly and then can build over time.
And that's how communities grow, right? It starts with they see your inspirational quote and they might feel nice, and then they see another one and they maybe like it, and then they take some time to invest in listening to one of your podcasts, and they're so impressed they actually break their ice and start to comment, and then someone else, is like, oh, well, I like that too. Now I feel comfortable commenting, and then that starts to grow, and then you're growing a community that way. And like you said, it does take time, and business owners and physicians and anyone using it towards an end goal needs to be patient with that. But it can, that's the idea, is exactly what you're talking about and what you've seen and experienced.
Yeah. I think that also points to people think that you need a lot of followers or that somehow you need a lot of people to be looking at your posts. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so that's one of the myths that I like to break down because it's really more about the quality. So sure, if you're trying to accomplish something on a nationwide or a global scale, you're going to need to reach out and capture the volumes of people. But if you're a physician who's just trying to, grow their office in a local community, you don't need to necessarily worry about that. Starting small, but quality is really going to get you more out of it. And there's a lot around the influencers on Instagram that's starting to come to light. For example, a article that I've referenced a lot in presentations is this woman who had like 26 million followers on Instagram, and she couldn't even sell 30 t-shirts to get the Kickstarter program off the ground that she wanted, right? So that's where you really think about how important the quality of the people are. And so there's certainly a perception that's been sent in the world that the more followers you have, the better you are. But this isn't necessarily the case. And this is actually why Mark Zuckerberg is going more towards what they refer to as dark social and more private, and actually testing removal of things like numbers on social media content to take that heavy weight and burden of large numbers being a key factor and really getting back to the quality of the conversations you're having with the people on your platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. You start talking about Mark Zuckerberg and dark social media, and suddenly I started to feel like, what the heck is all of that? So perhaps you could talk about different platforms on social media. And, it may sound like a review to some people who have it's been in the ether, right? So everybody knows about Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. But if you could, again, starting us kind of at the beginning, what are each of those platforms about? And then you guys, we will get to more about the nuts and bolts and, where you should be and how you can use it. Because I can, even just talking about it myself, I can feel the overwhelm starting. So I'm sort of talking to myself as much as you guys out there. Sue is going to break it down so that we can feel more comfortable and not as overwhelmed.
Well, and something I'll also start with as I just kind of go into a little overview of each of the channels that you mentioned to alleviate the overwhelm that people often feel is don't feel like you need to be on all of them, right? There's a lot of buzz out there about being everywhere, but that is overwhelming because we're not all walking around with an entourage, right? We're talking to people like you and I, right? One woman show, one person show. You have to bite off what you can and make work what you can work with. As I go through each of these things, if people want to think about, that could work for me, or I already have a little bit of a presence there, start there and grow from there, right? So we were talking about Facebook. So Facebook, of course, started as the personal platform. And Facebook is the place where on your personal profile, of course, people are sharing whatever. But a lot of people have also taken to a bit of self-promotion and business on a personal Facebook account. Now, this is perfectly acceptable, especially if it's done in the way of educational marketing, right? So there's a lot of talk about coronavirus right now. If doctors are sharing articles and saying, this is what you should read, here's what makes sense of it all. Those are the kinds of great things you can share from a business, but also a personal perspective on Facebook. Facebook pages is where you would specifically go and create a business page to grow your brand. Now, here's the catch, though. Years ago, I might tell people, if you want to use Facebook to grow your business, you must have a page, right? Well, it's good from a branding perspective to get your name, but it's really hard these days to grow a Facebook business page without doing a lot of content production, consistency, and advertising. So this is where I do have a lot of conversations with clients about if you'd like to use your personal account to let the world know what you do, because you're in a referral-based business, that's perfectly acceptable. But let's find a balance that doesn't scare your friends away, but also that doesn't break terms of service, which is to not specifically do commercial business on your Facebook profile. And then you can balance that out with your pictures of babies and dogs and beaches and burritos. So, but the Facebook page would be very much more specifically to growing a business, talking professional industry and all of that sort of thing. Facebook also allows you to tell, a bit of story and narrative in a post because it's both visual and written content, right? So then Facebook also owns Instagram. And similarly, you can do the same thing as far as uploading visual media and sharing a story about it. But the attention is much more on the image in Instagram, whereas statistics show that people might spend a little bit more time reading what you've written on Facebook. On Instagram, it's really the priority is going to be on that visual media piece. It is a little bit different. It's probably a little bit more personal and casual than a Facebook page. And it is a great opportunity for personal branding if you're comfortable of putting more of your personality into it, right? There's a lot of hashtag use on Instagram, which is more so than on Facebook and other channels. We can get into that later if you want to, before we wrap up sort of the overview. And then if we look into LinkedIn, this is certainly going to be the most professional of platforms, right? This is where you're probably going to be talking more to other physicians, maybe other academics, sharing industry journals, articles, whether you've written them or someone else has. It's a really great space for establishing that thought leadership, the expertise, and building a network. Now, certainly, as we're thinking from it, in the perspective of, other physicians and academics. However, it's still going to be a great potential location for referrals because you're establishing that thought leadership and people may see what you're doing and identify a need for your particular field. But it's probably, depending on how you want to use it, may or may not be a place where you're picking up a lot of clients necessarily as the first intention. And then Twitter is very different. It's very high paced. But Twitter can also be a really great place for, again, thought leadership, the academic component, and also identifying the breaking news or highlights of things that are happening, what's trending. And even if you're not a user of Twitter in the sense that you're posting multiple tweets a day, it still can be a good tool to use in combination with the others, because perhaps what you see going by on Twitter, the popularity and the trending of it, may be a good indicator for you that, this might be a good article for me to share on LinkedIn, or this might be a good conversation to start on Facebook, or maybe there's a little video that's informative that I can also share on Instagram. So those are the ways that, they're different from each other as far as who's in the room and the way they're talking to each other, but also the speed of it and the way that you're sharing the different channels.
Yeah, that really helps, I think. I had one question about Facebook, and then we'll move on to talking about sort of the nuts and bolts of things, what the heck a hashtag is, how you can keep your personal life separate from your business life. I think that's one of the main reasons why physicians stay away from social media is because, they don't necessarily want their patients seeing pictures of their children.
Right.
Or, it's like, I'm certainly very protective of my personal life.
Definitely.
For example, I don't have patients right now. I'm actually, as most of you know, I left clinical practice 7 years ago, and now I do have a non-clinical career. But nonetheless, I have some rules about what I post. Like, I never post pictures of my children, and everybody has like these things where they're like the boundaries that they might not want to go over. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but just to backtrack with the dark, what did you call it?
Oh yeah. So dark social. So there's a lot
dark
of talk
social
around private, right? So Mark Zuckerberg has been saying a lot where the future is private, social media is going more private. And usually what people think in their mind when they hear privacy is the other conversation that you just brought up, right? Which is personal privacy, protecting my accounts. But actually, when Mark Zuckerberg is saying the future is private, it's a little bit more focused on what's being termed dark social. And what that means is social media that not everybody sees. One is using groups more in Facebook. So becoming part of communities that are private groups that you need to be invited to join, that other people cannot find and participate in. So you might have, let's say you have a group of physicians that you do research or bounce ideas off of or share case studies with each other to learn and grow. You could have a private Facebook group where only you are communicating with each other. And then you don't have to worry about other people chiming in, breaking the dynamic, and you feel more comfortable sharing with just these people because they're chosen and selected. And so that's one way. There's also, as you might have seen, if people aren't familiar with stories, those are the little things that if you're on Instagram or Facebook, you see them at the top of your device, right? And you tap on one of those and it plays for about 15, 20 seconds on Instagram and 30 seconds on Facebook, and then goes on to the next thing. And that is that ephemeral content that basically Facebook adopted from Snapchat's success and brought over to Instagram and Facebook. And that also is, while it might be public, depending on the settings of your account, the communication behind it is not. So Diane, if you posted a story with an image that said, hey, my latest podcast is live, and I commented on that story, it would go into your messenger instead of public. So that way you and I can have a conversation about it, but I'm not going to have a conversation with the general public about it. And then it also disappears in 24 hours unless you save it. So that's a little bit more of the dark social, is the community, the stories, and really just bringing things into closer groups than the full publicized conversation, as well as fully publicized identification of how many people might have liked or commented on something.
Oh, okay. I think that makes more sense now. I've seen groups on Facebook, and I'm actually in some groups where you do have to get invited, or you either get invited or you have to sort of apply.
Yeah, they have
to
questions.
Be accepted.
Yep.
Yeah, like some of these physician groups, you have to put in a license number or where you went to medical school, or and they kind of check you out before you're in, so you don't have people just fishing around.
Yeah, you don't want people to break that trust. You don't want a troll or a hijacker to come in there. So it's good that they're building these features that allow us to lock down these controlled communities, because they can really flourish and do a lot of good.
Yeah, that's super cool. So let's see. So we've covered a lot already. Yeah. We've talked about why build social media. What is social media? We talked about the 4 main platforms and branding, your own personal brand, reaching out to patients, building groups, posting. So we've talked in general about social media, and even just talking about it in generalities is a ton to absorb. So I hope that you guys feel free to just go back and start at the beginning and listen to it over if it sounds confusing. As Sue is a real expert at this, but it is a big, broad topic, so you might need to listen to it again. But we're going to keep going, and we have just a few more things to talk about, which is Social Media 101. So again, like, I'm sitting in that airline seat next to you. I'm the doc that's like afraid to get on social media, or maybe have posted a few pictures, as you said, like, kids' soccer game, or, my trip to Hawaii or whatever. If you're interested in getting more serious about it, so to speak, how do you do that? Can you do it by yourself? Do you need to hire a team? What does that look like?
Yeah, so both can work. It sort of depends on the resources you have available, whether that's, time or money. If you have the ability to hire someone to help support you, and you have really strong goals around creating, a strategy for particular goals that you're going to accomplish on social media, it can be really useful to hire someone that can help support you with that. But you want to be very careful there, because like you said, Diane, at the beginning of the podcast, there's a lot of people hanging their shingle up and saying, I'm a social media manager. Well, a way that I like to position it is, so it goes much beyond saying, I grew up with this. I've been posting on Facebook since I was 3. I'm really good at it. That's great. But here's the question that I pose to anyone who says, I'm just going to outsource this, pay someone I don't know, or not have a really strong interview process, is if you had an issue with a patient and that patient went to Facebook or Twitter and said some things about you that were damaging, and you were on vacation with your family, would you trust this person to speak as you in response to that patient? That needs to be the level of qualification you have for somebody to speak as you on social media. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, that is a really high bar than having somebody just, post for you on general things. That's really important. I've talked to docs. They've lost a ton of money because these guys can charge a lot. They know because you're a physician that they assume you have deep pockets, and we don't know any better.
Your personal situation. You might have 4 kids going off to college. You're still paying college loans off. They don't know this, And the other thing that can be a negative, outside of protecting your brand and your reputation, is that, you might start shoving $500 to $1,000 a month off to a service. And then what you're going to find is that every other physician has the same content going out on their Facebook page or LinkedIn profile, saying the same thing at the same time using the same article. And I see this a lot in real estate. But wherever there's a service that says, we do social media management for real estate, we do this for lawyers, we do this for dentists, we do this for physicians, and they're automating things, the reason they're doing so well and it's so easy for them is because they're doing the same thing for everybody else. So another piece to be careful about, right? So that's why I always say, if you're going to make the investment and do it well. Hire somebody that has a stake in your business. Even if it's someone that just works for you directly, specifically part-time or 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week or whatever that is. Make sure that you have a strategy, that person understands your brand, your reputation, has a stake in it for you on your behalf to do it well. So,
wow. Yeah. So that's a lot more than just throwing money at somebody who says that they can handle your social media. And I think for physicians, it's really important. I mean, it's important for everybody, but particularly for physicians. Yeah, I think there is. Well, actually, I know that there is.
You're dealing with people's lives, like physicians, lawyers. I would say there's a different standard of care than, if someone complains about their hamburger, that's one thing. But if someone has a complaint about their surgery or treatment, that's a much higher bar you need to really be cautious about.
Yeah. So say that if you don't have the money to hire somebody, or if you're considering doing it on your own, is that possible?
Absolutely. And that's where I like to, again, alleviate that overwhelm of people feeling like, if I'm going to do social media, that means I'm doing Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and I'm doing videos and all of these things. And then it's like, whoa, right? So it's that, the age-old marathon analogy. If you're going to go, if you say you want to run a marathon, you're not just going to get up the next day, put on your sneakers and run 26 miles. Start small. Some people might, but then they're going to need a physician. So start small. If you have a LinkedIn account that you haven't logged into for a while, dust it off and go see what people are doing out there. If you have an Instagram account, then, maybe start doing a little bit more professionally than perhaps you have historically. So just start small. It is, like I said earlier, Facebook pages are much more difficult because of the ways that algorithms work, growing an audience and being seen, right? So if someone does not already have a Facebook business account and they're getting ready to dip a toe in the water, I would say, just maybe post a couple of industry-related articles. Again, this time we're in right now is a great time for physicians to dispel myths. On LinkedIn, if you even start doing one post a week and you haven't been doing anything, that's going to give you much more visibility than even if you did 3 posts a week on a Facebook page. So start where you're comfortable. Start where you have a good network of connections, and just start small. And start sharing things that will help educate other people and draw in some conversations that perhaps you haven't been having online for a while.
Yeah. And would you say then, if you're just getting started, to just pick one, like you were talking about dusting off your LinkedIn account or looking at that Instagram that you might have been posting more to on a more casual level. So would you suggest just picking one and getting started?
It's somebody that has not been doing anything, then yes, I would say start with one. Because then what we get into, and when I work with clients who are just getting started, they're overwhelmed, they're busy, they have plenty of other things to do. It's more about, okay, what are your goals? Let's choose the one channel you're going to start with. Make sure that they fully understand how that channel works. But again, all right, if you've been doing nothing this week, let's make sure you do at least one post and have some conversations on other posts that people in your network are posting. And even just that little bit, especially on a channel like LinkedIn, if you have a network that's been established there, is going to give you enough visibility to start helping you understand what works getting comfortable with the dynamic of putting yourself out there, getting comfortable with the actual features and functions of the tool. And then that's what we can get into saying, okay, great. So you've done this on LinkedIn for a month and you're getting really good at it. Those same articles you posted on LinkedIn, well, they're still relevant. So now what you can do is reuse that and put them on Facebook as well. And then that's how you start to easily layer in other channels without, again, creating a lot of overwhelm for someone who is really focused on something else, which is the well-being of other humans.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So with that, we've been chatting for a while, and oh my gosh, so much information. And we've been talking very casually about, just post this, just post that. If you could just briefly talk about the anatomy of a post, because I think what people do, and I've certainly done it, is sort of copycat what other people are doing. But that, I don't know whether that's the most effective thing or not. So if you have just basics like how to do a decent post. And then we'll wrap up because, oh my gosh, there's so many things we could talk about. And Sue knows so much about this topic. So we'll probably do a second episode if you're okay with it, Sue.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk more about the intricacies of how to set goals, meeting the intricacies of meeting those goals. But for those of us who are just getting rolling and, we're becoming during this conversation more and more granular. So we're going to kind of end with, how do you actually do an effective social media post?
Yeah, and that the way you stated it too is spot on, how you said you just sort of adopt what you see, right? And then you do that thing. And that's something, taking even 10 minutes more to craft a post can make all the difference in the world. So let's take an example of, let's say that a physician has done a case study that has been placed in a very prominent journal of medicine, and they're proud of it. They want to share it to help educate people around it and get other physicians involved in the conversation. So a very common thing that you'll see on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc., especially by busy professionals, is something like this. They'll take the URL to the article, paste it in the post box, and they'll say, "Honored to have my work in this journal, period, post," right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm laughing because I've done that.
Yeah. I know.
I've totally done that.
It's easy. It's because there's a discomfort in sharing ourselves. I've worked with extraordinarily humble people, and I've worked with people with huge egos. And along the entire spectrum is still a discomfort in putting yourself out there and what people are going to think about how I worded this or what this looks like. And so then it comes back to this, check me out or featured here, boom. Well, what I always like to take it back to also is, what is your goal of the post? So as I set up this example, the goal of the post for this physician is probably multifold. Establish thought leadership, get wider distribution and visibility on the publication that their case study was presented in, and educating and building conversation around it, right? So if you want that visibility, just simply posting a quick statement is not going to get that, because in order to get the visibility, conversation begets that visibility, right? If you post the journal and no one says anything on it, LinkedIn or Facebook says, well, people aren't really looking at this, bye-bye, right? But if I start commenting on it, my friends might see it, and then they might start commenting on it, and that's how that virality grows. So you want to give people something that intrigues them, right? Maybe there's a really shocking statistic in that study. Put that first, and then say, something else that speaks to it. So put something intriguing first, and then ask a question. Did you realize this was the impact of A, blah, blah, blah? Fellow physicians, I would love to hear your response to this commentary about this segment. So share something intriguing, ask a question, also state it in your brand personality, right? Even as I said, physicians have personal brands. What kind of conversation style do you have with patients or with fellow physicians? Speak in that way. If we saw each other in real life, I wouldn't say, Diane, check me out in this journal, right? I would say it very differently. So think about how you would actually say it to another human being. So then getting back to the overall anatomy of the post is tell the story, ask the question. When you put that URL in the post and that lovely image shows up, thumbnail from the website that you're sharing something from, take that URL out. And so this is because of clean copy. The eyeball doesn't like to see too many things that are contradicting the nice story that you just wrote that is going to inspire people to read your article and communicate with you about it. So take that URL out. That thumbnail, when it's clicked, will take people to the article. So yeah, good story, good visual media. And we can talk about video next time, but that's either gonna be an image or a video. And then if there is something, so let's say the article is discussed by the American Medical Association, you can tag the American Medical Association in the post. And why would you do that? One, to credit them perhaps if needed, but two, because when they see that post, that allows them to see that post, possibly also communicate with you on it and share it, which then goes back to raising the visibility and the impact of that article that you're sharing. Mm-hmm. So those are a few key components of creating a strong post.
I love it. I love it. One quick question is, you'd mentioned tagging. So what is that? And then we see hashtag this, hashtag that, you know, hashtag coronavirus, hashtag live your best life. You know, like people just like you can make up any, you just, you know, so just quickly, how do you tag somebody and what is the hashtag and how do you use it?
Yeah. So when you tag somebody in the copy of a post, what you would do, so if I was going to put a post up about this podcast, I would say, you know, I was so honored to, no, I'm just kidding.
Honored to be on the Doctor's Life.
Diane. But, you know, whatever I would say about the podcast, I would tag you. And the way I would do that is I would put the @ symbol in and start to type your name. And then because we are friends or we're connected on LinkedIn or I like your business page, after that @ sign and I type your name in, the social media channel will find you and highlight you. And what that does is then it gives you the link and the ability, one, where someone could then click over to also like your page. So that's me being a little bit more supportive of you and sharing that link instead of just typing your name. But the other benefit is also that way you get a notification. You know that I've posted that post. You are more likely to see it and interact with it and share it. So that's the idea of the tagging. And you can do the same thing in pictures. Now, hashtags are a bit different, and we could talk about this for an hour too, but the quick synopsis is hashtags are a way of categorizing content that hopefully allows more visibility of your piece of content to those people who may be following those hashtags, right? So you can follow a hashtag, or I might just type something in. I might type in hashtag Facebook stories and see what people are talking about. But the idea of it is to raise the visibility of the content you're sharing, help categorize it for other people. And so when you see people hashtagging all of the key words in their post, I like to refer to that as hashtag desperation. It's you really, again, I said before, any post that you do, you want to think about the goal of that post. And part of the goal is who do you want to see it? And that's where the hashtags come in. So think about and actually do research. Research the hashtags you think you want to use. See who's following those hashtags. And if it's going to get you any additional visibility, and if it's going to get the visibility from the quality people, not just the quantity, circling back to the beginning, but the quality people that you want to have eyeballs on it. So yes, hashtag coronavirus right now is very popular, and that may be one physicians want to use as they're educating people. Something to think about. If you use the most popular hashtag, the one that 25 million people are using, does not mean 25 million people are going to see your article. If you are not already someone who has high visibility on social media, actually using the biggest hashtags can detract from your potential visibility because the influencers are going to show up at the top of that hashtag. So think about some that are popular, some that are smaller, and making sure that they're very relevant to your post and that you're not doing it with hashtag desperation. And then do a little carriage return. Because like I said, in the anatomy of a successful post, we want clean copy. So if you've got a bunch of blue hashtags, pound signs and things, it takes away from the eye and people may just scroll by. And the last thing I'll leave you with on hashtags is best practice is 9 to 11 on Instagram. 2 or less on LinkedIn if you must. Max 3 on Facebook. Same 2 to 3 on Twitter. So speak to the channel you're on, adapt to the audience there, and just make it all relevant and all part of your intention and purpose behind what you're sharing.
Wow. I love it. I think you have really changed my view of things, like going from just the very basics to the very specific.
Yeah.
And I know that the physicians that listen or anybody that's listening, they are really going to get so much out of what you've been talking about.
Oh, good. I hope so.
Oh, yeah. And I just want to emphasize too, that Sue, we talked about like somebody that posts, somebody that speaks for you. Sue is like high level. She's not somebody who you would call up and say like, oh, I want you to post stuff for me. I want you to do stuff for me. Like Sue is, as you can tell, she's a strategist. So she really helps people to get to the point, where they can decide whether or not they want a team or decide how they want to do things. So she's not that person that you call for that. But I think, I know that she's the person that you would talk to when you're talking about like, how do you want to build your brand? How do you want to connect with other docs or connect with your patients? What are the goals that you want to have as you're starting your foray into social media, or maybe you've already been there and you want to take some corrective action?
Yeah, that's another very popular opportunity.
Yeah, Sue works with large groups, and you work with smaller groups too.
Yeah, individual entrepreneurs as well. Yeah. And it all goes back to, the strategy, the training on the best practices and how to implement the strategy, and then coming back to look at the measurements to see what's working and kind of, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah. So even though Sue is really nationally recognized and speaks nationally and is a wonderful educator for Fortune 500 companies, and, I know personally that as a friend of hers that she does a lot of traveling and speaking and educating on this. As you can see, she's very approachable and accessible.
Thank you.
You just have to reach out to her. So, Sue, how would somebody find you if they want to learn more, if they want to get in touch with you? How would they go ahead and do that?
My website is suekoch.com. My email is sue@suekoch.com. You can search me on LinkedIn and feel free to connect. And, if you want to send a note and say, hey, I heard you on Diane's podcast, I'd be happy to connect on LinkedIn. You can just search Sue Koch there. And then all of my other social media channels, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sue Koch Catalyst. So that's CATALYST. Yes,
okay.
That's right.
Okay. And Sue Koch it's SUEKOCH.
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. So thank you so much, Sue, for being on the Doctor's Life podcast. I look forward to our next conversation. As you can see, Sue has a wealth of information, and this has been social media, basically like social media 101. And this will get you guys started. And as you have more questions as you go along, then we're going to do the second episode, because there's so many things that Sue touched on that we could go into more. For example, you guys noticed that her Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts all had the same name. So there's little things like that will help you as you go along. Gosh, Sue, you guys don't know what you're getting. People pay big bucks to talk to this woman. So I'm so grateful to you for sharing with our physician community about all the expertise that you have. Thanks again.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I love sharing. And, if, like you said, it helped change some of your perspectives, if it helped to change some perspectives of other people, that just even to start dipping a toe and getting a little bit more out of it, that's my goal. So I look forward to continuing the conversation. It's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again, Sue, for coming on the Doctor's Life podcast. You guys, until next time, I hope you all stay happy and healthy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening today. If you like what you've heard, be sure to hit subscribe in your podcast app so that you won't miss an episode. You can also read show notes, get links, and contact me by going to drdiane.com. That's www.drdianne.com. And docs, while you're there, take the Physician Vitality Assessment, which will help you more clearly see if you are at risk for burnout.